Getting ready to go in to meet with the Heritage Foundation, who wrote a book on the Southern Poverty Law Center, which was the main reasons we're here, is trying to get the government to remove their nonprofit status, since Southern Poverty Law is really an extension of radical leftists in the Democratic Party that's being weaponized to come after us. Good evening, everybody. So we're at the new house now that we're renting until we get the hell out of Illinois. So heard the good news, right? Last night, the Southern Poverty Law Center Marxist scumbags were indicted, 11 of them, 11 different indictments. They're funneling money to the KKK. You know, they label us as Nazis and racist and hateful, and they've been paying these guys to show up at our events so they have something to write about so that they could use that to raise more money. They also came after me, parents involved in education, Moms for Liberty, Moms for America, Shannon Adcock, friend of mine from Awake, Illinois. We were all labeled like we were terrorists, like the Nazis. And this was because the Southern Poverty Law Center was a extension of the Democratic Party. And so they came after me aggressively in 2021, I think it was November 31st. Another thing about Southern Poverty Law Center is that they work with the FBI back then under the Biden administration. Kash Patel kicked them out. They don't work with them anyway. So a guy named Jeff Tischauser, who's a punk bitch from Chicago here, he's a Chicago Antifa. He writes for the Southern Poverty Law Center. The Downers Grove leftist Democrats came after me because I spoke out about porn. Actually, that story, which I thought at first was devastating, right? I was like, oh my God, look at all the stuff they said about me. You know, I put in memes about Dennis Rodman, and he said it was a racist pre-Civil War meme, which is just absurd, right? You know, Alex Stein, the comedian, they put it in the story, me and Alex Stein. You know, Fugiato Blow, he's Donald Trump's nephew. It's sarcastic. He's a patriotic rapper, Christian rapper. They put that in there and tried to make me look bad. I did the OK sign, the Proud Boy sign, when I was standing next to one of the president of the Proud Boys at the time, and you'll see I was laughing. I'm 64 now. I was 60 at the time, something like that. And I was laughing. Number one, the OK sign is not racist. It's okay. The left label it as racist, just like they want to change the narrative and everything else. And I laughed at it because I know what it means. There was Antifa folks there, and it got put up online. And so he put that on the cover, like, you know, and I was elected committeeman, Republican figure. So this guy's full of shit. So then, not even 2 weeks after that, I was labeled a domestic terrorist. We were on the way to Charlie Kirk's TPUSA with my family, my wife, my kids. My twins were only 15. That's how I found out. The Southern Poverty Law Center at the time under the Biden administration worked with the FBI, and they would go after extremists. They would go after extremists. You know who's an extremist? Anybody but Antifa. Anybody but BLM. It's us. They were being paid by the federal government, the FBI, state and local agencies, and they would go around and they present training on who our extremists are, and that's white people, Catholics, parents. It's crazy. So after I found out I was on a domestic terrorist watch list, thankfully Matt Gaetz saw one of the stories in the Epoch Times, and he got involved. He sent a demand letter to Garland, Ray, and Mayorkas, demanding to know why they put me on a terrorist watch list. Was it because I was peacefully at January 6th, which I never got arrested. I didn't do anything wrong. I left before people went in there. But Jeff Tischauser, the Antifa SPLC guy, said I was there when people went in the Capitol. Another lie. The guy's a lying scumbag, right? And so that's why I got put on the list, because of the Southern Poverty Law Center, right? It was 2 years after January 6th. They labeled me a terrorist. All of a sudden, 2 weeks later, I'm a terrorist, which is bullshit. Congressman Troy Niels saw some of the stories that was written in the Epoch Times about what happened to me, and he got involved. He actually had me call him through the reporter, and he sent a letter to TSA, and all of a sudden, right after I've been a TSA pre-check, twice I was approved for it. They responded back to the congressman and said I no longer fit their criteria. In the middle, this has all happened all after the Southern Poverty Law Center story came out, right? When I took my wife and twins to Charlie Kirk, my kids were VIP guests at Charlie. They get to bring two friends. They were 15 years old. Guess what, man? They quad-S my wife and children. My wife is not involved in politics. She hates it. My children are honor students. My daughter's an Eagle Scout, and they embarrassed them. Missed our flights. Treated like terrorists. and it's absurd. So after the letters went out, Troy Niels and Matt Gaetz actually got me off in about 6 months afterwards. I did go to CPAC. They would send 5 agents to the gate before I got on with undercover marshals. And then they'd search me right there before I get on the plane. Everybody's looking at me when I get on the plane. I go, listen, I'm not a terrorist. I'm one of the parents or J6ers that's being targeted by the Biden administration. Half the plane would laugh. The leftist, half the plane would give me a nasty look, which was kind of funny. So, fast forward to 2023. In June 2023, I was invited by the Center for Self-Governance. This is under the Biden administration. And we went out to D.C. We had tons of meetings about the Southern Poverty and Law Center and Antifa and their collaboration and how they came after us, right? So we had a closed-door private meeting with Senator Mike Lee. I'm going to show you guys pictures of some of this stuff. I saw Matt Gaetz. We met with his staff and his attorney, John Wilson, and you'll see a picture of me and Matt. And this was after Matt sent that letter that saved my ass. We met with Josh Hawley's staff. We met with a bunch of other guys. And this was under the Biden administration. And so what they told us is they're going after the SPLC heavy. This was 2023, June 2023, right? And then, so we shared all the information. There was other victims of the Southern Poverty Law Center. And then they would go after my job. They aggressively went after my job that I had for 23 years. I did get laid off because of the politics. They didn't openly admit it when I said, you guys let me go because of the politics. I was the top sales rep at this company more than anybody in the world, right? And they said it wasn't performance. So how does a sales rep get laid off and it's not performance related? It's absurd, right? I said, you did this because of my politics. And the HR is like, oh, we love your politics. Oh, you fight for the children. I wanted to tell her to stick it up her ass, but I couldn't, right? And I had multiple investigations because of these Jeff Tischauser, the Antifa guys. They were harassing my executives in Paris, my CEO, our customers CEOs, tagging them. When I would go to conferences, they would tag the conference and say I was a racist, a homophobe. How could a DEI, because my company was from Paris, total woke piece of shit company, how could a DEI company allow someone like me? And then they would call in and make fake phone calls pretending that they were employees that quit because they felt unsafe because Terry Newsome worked for the company, but they never left their name, right? So I survived that. Fast forward to the illegal Venezuelans and Tom Homan. I hosted him in Chicago, and the Gateway Pundit did a nice story about it. A month after that, Jeff Tischauser, Antifa, he wrote a story in the Southern Poverty Law Center about me, again, Tom Homan, and General Flint, and then how I hate poor innocent asylum seekers. And I was going after the Tren de Largua, and we would go after the illegal criminal Venezuelans, and I still am going after them, right? So sure enough is when I got laid off, maybe 10 days after that happened. I survived all the other onslaughts of the SPLC stories and the harassment, but I didn't survive that last one after all those years. And ironically, everybody knows Wikipedia, right? Look up Wikipedia. They're all tied together. SPLC, these other punks. So they have a Wikipedia on Tom Homan, right? And guess who's in the Wikipedia? They put my name in there to try to act like I had some influence over Tom Homan in the Trump administration as a proud boy, which I wasn't. Absolutely was associated with them at events and showing up at our parents' events and stuff like that. But as far as they've been tracking me and stuff, I was never a proud boy. These scumbags, and I have no input into Tom Homan or anybody, right? They lie about everything, and so now they're getting arrested. They're getting indicted. They're getting indicted for paying $3 million to KKK organizations, right-wing organizations. They label us. Another thing I learned about the SPLC and Antifa is that when you get a voice, and there's not many of us that have voices on our side, right? When you get a voice, they go after you. There's an Antifa handbook. I forgot the name of it. You'll see that. You get a voice. I had a voice as a dad. Didn't want porn in my kid's school, period. That's it. I didn't care about gay people. I don't give a shit what they do. And then they came after me. They tried to, take away my job. They threatened me. They sent the FBI to my house. They put my family on a Quad S, my wife, my children. And so I am so excited about what happened yesterday, and I hope that they find out and get to the bottom of who put me on the terrorist watch list. As soon as the Southern Poverty Law Center published their story, 2 weeks after January 6th, which I didn't even get in trouble for, I'm suddenly labeled a domestic terrorist. So who from the Southern Poverty Law Center is communicating with somebody from the FBI that put me on the terrorist watch list? And then who reached out to the TSA to take away my TSA pre-check, right? And then who, I got the name of the guy that reached out to Troy Niels, I'll put it up there. Who's that piece of shit, right? Said I suddenly didn't fit the criteria out of the blue after all these years. And then who had the authority when Matt Gaetz and Troy Niels sent these letters to them in my behalf that scared them enough to take me off the list? And then once Trump got elected after the inauguration in February, I got my TSA pre-check back. It's absurd. So we have to find out as Americans, this stuff can't go on, right? This is ridiculous. Fortunately, I didn't go to prison like some of those J6 guys. I didn't go in, I didn't fight, I left before people went in, but I was still punished. And I don't know if it was, in Matt Gaetz in his letter, don't know if it was because I was a vocal dad or I peacefully attended January 6th. So we got to go after these scumbags from the Southern Poverty Law Center. We got to take away their nonprofit status. They should have lost that a long, long time ago. I bet you my right arm, they're going to lose it because they were talking about that in 2023 under the Biden administration. Oh, and another thing, you saw the Attorney General say, yeah, they started this investigation in 2023, but it stopped suddenly. Well, I was one of the people that was meeting with the politicians and intelligence and stuff at the time. So the Biden administration must have found out about it and stopped it. Thank God it happened again. Thank God for Trump. Thank God for Patel. And hopefully these people will lose their status and some of them will go to jail. And that piece of shit, Jeff Tischauser, that punk, I hope he's out of a job working for his Marxist friends. Have a good night.